Dear students, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to discuss about the analysis of the film Breathless. It was a famous film in France. It was called a new wave film released in 1960, France, and was directed by Jean-Luc Godard. The script was written by Godard and Francois Truffaut, both of whom were writers for the Cahiers du Cinéma, a famous journal for cinema in those time in France. Breathless centers around a petty womanized car thief, Michael, who by misfortune ends up killing a police officer and tries to convince an American girl, Patricia, to run away with him to Italy. As it is called a new wave film, it was really a change in the traditional film styles that was existed in France up to that. It was after the World War II. In a previous scene, Michael had taken the keys to Patricia's apartment without the knowledge of the desk clerk. In this scene, Patricia is finally going back to her apartment and notices the keys are not there. The desk clerk claims she must have left it in the door to her apartment. When she gets into her apartment, she notices that Michael is in her bed. This scene carries significant traits of the French New Wave in its display. All the way the human relation, social relation, men and women relation, that's all depicted in the scene. Uh, we see the emphasis of material, making the audience aware of the film process. That is, rather than the plot, which is seen falls for far away from, by use of a handheld camera and direct sound. These two things are first to the French cinema. That means a handheld camera and direct sound. There is also the use of jump cuts, again rendering us to be aware that we are watching a film. Jump cuts were common in the new wave films. Handy camera, then a direct sound, jump cuts. These are all some features of the new wave films in those time in France. The discontinuity prohibits us from really getting into the narratives of Michael being a man who is on the run from the law, making the audience think and having traits that are not anti narrative. The scene is a good example of the new wave's idea of rebelling against the traditional narratives of cinema di papa. Godhard wants us to think about literature, love, relationships, discourse, human interactions, philosophy, and social ideas. All these things are discussing in this film. And the traditional way of narration that is entirely changed, and a new style that is closely related to the documentary style that is we can see in this film. Because this scene is still so far away from the narrative, there is a blurring of fiction and reality and aids the audience in thinking more about their own reality. Since this scene is over 20 minutes long and focusing on just the first half of the scene, the music that opens the scene when Patricia enters her bedroom and finds Michael lying in her bed is a jazzy piano American tune. It gives a different tone to the film, which is set in France. There is a quick medium shot of Michael in the bed and then a long shot of Michael and Patricia. The camera stays fixed for a while, and part of Patricia's body is cut out. This feeds to the blurring of fiction and reality because it resembles the documentary style in a way by having people partially out of the view of the camera and such a natural settings. All these settings are closely related to the documentary style, that is partially setting the scenes. Then we go to a medium shot of Patricia through the mirror. The shot shows the back of her head and shoulder, the mirror and her reflection. The camera stays to the side rather than simply showing Patricia's reflection at the center. These are all some new changes. It was all new to the French film. By keeping the camera at this angle gives the effect that the camera will be seen through the window behind Patricia. There we can see Goodhart really playing the idea of a documentary and a fiction film. You can also see in the screen slightly moving, suggesting that there is a use of handheld camera. There are medium shots from Michael to Patricia in the mirror, and then a jump shot of Michael looking to the mirror. Again, the camera is off to the side at an angle to not expose it through the mirror. Then there is a medium shot of the two on the bed with their backs to the cinema. The music cuts off for a moment, and the lighting seems to be coming from the window, really highlighting the realistic approach Godard is going for. The dialogue that the two are sharing is very natural as well. Firstly, Patricia was not at all displeased that Michael was sleeping in her bed in her absence. They are not talking about anything vastly important to the plot, but rather the thing Patricia is currently not thinking about. In the background, we can hear birds chirping and other noises from the outside. A medium shot of the two in bed with Michael lying and Patricia on her knees holding a teddy bear. A very relaxed and intimate moment. So in the scene itself, the story is telling the background story also telling the scenes behind the window. After a while, the music comes back on. Michael has been questioning Patricia about whether she slept with her colleague, and the discussion is very witty. Michael claims that he is there to sleep with Patricia, and the conversation circles on love and sex. It makes us question at what means to we desire to have sexual intercourse with someone, and how do we define what love is. We also wonder whether Michael is sincere with his love or is just saying anything to get Patricia to sleep with him. There is then a close up of a magazine that Michael is holding, and there are several jump shots as he flips the page. This close up of magazine just reveal the behavior of Michael. That's all some techniques what was followed by the French New Wave films in those times. Um, by showing a magazine or a particular page, just showing the lights of on the behavior of that character. Showing the magazine of naked woman really is not showing much significance, but shows great relation to the kind of a man that Michael is. Just to think about Michael, that he's a, that kind of a man. continually talking about sex, and we have seen him mingle with numerous women. We then go out to a medium shot again, this time more to their left side. Michael continues to ask Patricia to sleep with him, and he rummages through her things a bit. She mentions for them to be like Romeo and Juliet, and the camera cuts to a drawing on the wall of Romeo and Juliet, and then back to the two. They play a weird game together, something really natural and authentic. Then there is a close up of Patricia's face with Michael's hand around her neck. He is counting up to eight for her to smile, and if she doesn't, he'll strangle her. He counts up to seven and three quarters, calls her a coward, and then she smiles. Patricia says she is done with the games and walks over Michael. He touches her butt, and she lays a stinking slap on his face. When he touches her butt, she lays a stinking slap on his face. There are medium shots of him on the bed and her at the window. All the while the camera still slightly shakes. Michael Nice completely shifting the tone. The conversation dwindles into things less meaningful. It takes the course of normal conversation. He eventually declares that he has something nice to say and says he wants to sleep with Patricia because she is beautiful. When she denies she is, he says because you are ugly then. A really interesting approach in trying to make Patricia have sex with him. His requests are eager but persistent. Patricia lives with her poster in hand and walks right over the view of the camera. Another interesting effect which plays more to reality. There is a close up of Michael, and the camera slowly moves up to a drawing above him and then moves back down to him and then to Patricia with her poster rolled up. They share, they stare at each other, and she looks through the folder poster, and the camera follows her gaze through the poster. This was one of the few real cinematic effects used and geared more to the fact that it is a movie and not a documentary. As the camera closes up to Michael, it then cuts to Patricia and Michael with their lips pressed together as the camera pans out. Most of the case while watching this movie, we can see, we may suspect whether it is a film or a documentary. But in this scene, when come to this scene, as the camera close up to Michael, it then cuts to Patricia and Michael with their lips pressed together as the camera pans out. It then jump cuts to Patricia putting up a poster. Michael requests to make a call, and again we are thrust back into a bit of the plot with Michael trying to reach his friend who owes him money. The entire scene could be seen as elliptical editing, and just 29 minutes. Within that time itself, everything is discussing. Everything means sexual intercourses, violence, and everything, and the background of social reality that was existed in France, and the social relationship and everything is discussing uh, within this time. That is the um, story analysis of the film Breathless.